So I think it's really the cleat sharpener that's responsible here. If they didn't make cleat sharpeners, this whole thing wouldn't have happened. And I also think that Karmelo is the new Luigi. All right, so I don't think we have time for Mackenzie Brothers history, but it is quite, because it later led to things like Michael Myers, Mike Myers. He did So I Married Axe Murderer, which was kind of heavily based on a similar theme of the Mackenzie brothers and how they had this dad who was like the dad in the Strange Brew movie. None of this stuff's on the show card, so we should just get going. We have a opening salvo clip from Steven Crowder. He has a thought piece for you. It's about them brewing up a race war in this country that doesn't naturally exist without the perturbation of the mainstream media and the occlusion of relevant, substantial, meritorious facts that should be considered and weighed. If you get these things off the battlefield, you can get people to go crazy emotional over half-truths and gaslighting and all this sort of stuff. And I don't think we need to really go that far. We're not going to be able to play the whole clip, but I'll give you a flavor for it. And as always, you can go to grandtheftworld.com. You can get the show notes and you can watch the entire clip at any time, because it's not about like the part we show it to you. It's like that is there, so it's there, so you can go see the whole thing if you're interested and wanted to know more. Because I think a lot of today's news is very short attention spanny, right? And if we want to outgrow the status quo, we need the longer attention span to learn more than the average bear, as they used to say on the Yogi Bear show. I watched a lot of cartoons as a kid. So some of these ideas are still relevant today. Don't be the average bear. You want to be like Yogi the Bear and get yourself some picnic baskets. Anyway, we don't have time to put a Band-Aid on that boo-boo, but we can go here to Steven Crowder and see how he can patch up and maybe triage this fomenting race war situation. Let's hear some thoughts. And I can't help but notice he's gone with like a biker mustache type of thing lately. So handlebar, hold on. Let's go to Crowder.
To Karmelo Anthony, Austin Metcalf. We covered this when it happened. We covered some of the misinformation as it was coming out. Now, yesterday, we had a pre-tape on the mayor, the globalist mayor installment that we did. So I wasn't able to talk about all of these developments. Some of it also happened kind of leading into the weekend. For those who don't know, Austin Metcalf was stabbed. White kid, young black kid, Karmelo Anthony. Okay? That's what happened. He was stabbed. It was murder. Now, when it happened, we thought, okay, the media doesn't want to cover this because of the races involved. We didn't know how fast they would actually race to venerate the murderer. In this case, nothing that the Black Lives Matter, that the racist left, that the professional race-baiting activists try and use as a none of it holds water. This is not a young man, Karmelo Anthony. This is, well, first off, self-defense. The court will rule on that. I bet you he's going to be tried as an adult and probably spend most of, if not the rest of his life in prison. He's not a victim. He is not from a poor family who's had to struggle. And in this case, he wasn't wronged. There wasn't some racist police officer. There wasn't some racist kid.
As always, you can see the rest of that clip. It's on YouTube and it's on Rumble. It's all over the place. So I think it's really the cleat sharpener that's responsible here. If they didn't make cleat sharpeners, this whole thing wouldn't have happened. And I also think that Karmelo is the new Luigi. What do you guys think?
Yeah, man. It's kind of funny. So I was in Texas last weekend when this whole, that rally that they held where it was the Karmelo supporters, and then there was a big rally of Austin Metcalf supporters, and they were supposed to meet at the same place at the same time. And I was out to dinner with John Bound, and he was like telling me about it. He's like showing me all this stuff. He's like, bro, like the race war is kicking off tomorrow. And I'm like, dude, that's kind of crazy. In Frisco, Texas, like, a few hours away. And so I was paying attention to it.
Thank you for clarifying, because when everyone kept saying Frisco, I just thought like it's a San Francisco suburb or something like that. So I thought this was like a West Coast thing, but you're now saying Frisco is a place in Texas.
Frisco, Texas is where this all went down. Yep. And so anyway, so I was kind of paying attention to it. And yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff going on, and it's pretty awful that the killers being propped up. And I honestly, to be completely fair, like I'd love to see it all flesh out in court. Maybe it was a deliberate self-defense situation. I don't know, man. But the way it's like looks is it's pretty egregious and pretty one-sided. But I also see two opportunistic people on the other side coming in. And
Oh yeah. Well, I mean,
this
just
is
the lawyer for
well,
Carmelo Anthony, how he had abused the 2-year-old
oh
and
gosh, I didn't hear about
caused like
that.
cranial damage. And
Jesus.
my comment was, I don't know how he made it out of prison with doing something like that to a child.
Yeah, no, that's legit.
Yeah.
I wanted to play a clip here real quick. I'm going to test some of my tech, see if this works. This is from that rally from last weekend, the rally that I was just speaking about. And this is somebody on the other side who is using, and I have some comments to make about the father's position, but I'll do that after this. So basically, this guy, Jake Lang, who was leading this rally, and he is taking the position that this is, an extreme affront to the white race. So he's using the white race card. Like this is an attack on the entire white race, and white people need to come around. And so this is a conversation he was having with the father of Austin Metcalf on the phone. And let me know if the sound is not
Oh
working.
yeah, I saw part of this clip. Go
I'm
ahead.
just gonna play this real quick,
Yeah.
just a little bit of it, but.
Would you be willing to stand by me in a press conference or in an individual interview and talk about this issue that is larger than Austin at this point? God rest the beautiful young man's soul that would have been one of our strongest voices if he was still alive today. Yes, I am, sir.
We're not hearing his. I think the Zoom noise canceling is cutting it out.
Okay, well, basically, if you saw so basically the dad's on the phone and he says, "You are the effing problem. You are the one using my son's name to instigate this further divide racial violence for your own agenda and your own position." And I know that the father is taking the position of he's a Christian, he's practicing forgiveness to the person, and I've seen examples of this. And I saw this really powerful clip where it was like this serial killer was being sentenced to, in a courtroom, and it was one victim after the next, and they were berating him and saying like, "I hate you. I hope you die, burn in hell, everything." And then there's one old man walked up and he just said, "I forgive you." And then the killer just was devastated. It just like eviscerated him. And I was like, whoa, like the power of that is unfathomable. And it kind of ties into what we saw with the Hervoy Morich documentary a couple weeks ago, talking about the story of Richard Wurmbrand, being tortured in prison, and the guards were trying to break him and they couldn't break him. And he was like, a Catholic father. And he was like, "I was brought here to speak the word to you." And it like converted a lot of people, so anyway, I'm just saying like the power of that is very, very powerful.
Hey,
He's practicing his principles, man. And it's like, and I think that it's not fair to attack him for doing that. And so there you go. There you go. Wow. Oh, excuse me.
I didn't remember that name the first time it was mentioned a couple weeks ago. But when you just said that, I was like, oh, I have one of his books. It's a very interesting book.
Okay.
Very interesting character.
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I did since order that book, the Tortured for Christ book that Hervoy was talking about. But it's like, so that's what I'm seeing. And I do see how both sides are capitalizing on this to instigate race war, whether or not they're being charged to do it, paid to do it, put in position to do it. We know the agenda is to create a race war, and it's that perfect time of year. It's almost race war season. And I will point out this Jake Lang guy, is he even white because he's Jewish? So today in this situation, he's choosing to be the leader of the white race, I guess.
That's interesting. There might be some Civil War history crossovers with just what you observe right there. There might have been some third-party stirring ups in the past. I don't think, first off, person A was in a tent, person B came in, person A said to person B, like, where does black and white come into this? Where does race come into this? Unless it's racially motivated, at which point you would have some evidence to be like, here's evidence that it was racially motivated and premeditated, and then it's introduced into the conversation. Otherwise, I don't think the addition of race, color, creed, religion to the circumstances and actions that took place. I mean, sometimes you need context for who did what. But when it's like automatically, because this person was this color and this person's this color, now there's 20 million people who are like eyes on the situation and like going at each other. I don't think that's helpful. I don't think it's mature. I don't think it's civilized. I don't think it's logical, reasonable, rational, or ethical, to say the least moral. I mean, all these things that have character and quality for our society, it is none of these things. And yet, all these people are making, they're making fire out of it. And they're firing at each other. And they're swatting. And there's all sorts of other antics going on. So it goes back to the secessionists and the abolitionists both had extreme factions, and they drew the normal people to those extremes like centrifugal force. When a wheel spins around, things get attracted to the outside. And that's what they did to stir up the first civil war in this country. And we've been talking about that. Like, I started talking about that Solomon de Rothschild book like in 2017. I'm like, hey, I've noticed an incline in them talking about racism out of nowhere. And there's also this parallel in history to how that's the key to how they got us to go to civil war in the first place. And that took America back. I mean, it took America off track in many ways, and altered its development permanently going into the future. When anytime they assassinate presidents, it's usually a big deal. Abraham Lincoln was called a thief by the banking family who funded the Confederacy. Like, these are just facts on the table. I'm not drawing conclusions from them. But if you follow the history through, you can see an ominous continuity of things they don't want you to be aware of. And that means they're not on your side. They're not on your team. So find your teammates is the gist.
Yeah, I think there's also the aspect of they're trying to manufacture as much outrage as possible.
Yeah.
And so of all the different ways to divide and conquer, physical characteristics that you can't change that aren't necessarily ubiquitous. Not every white person or black person has the same experience or the same life experience. And so whenever I see someone say they're speaking on behalf of one group or another, I find it comical because I'm like, who appointed you, bro? And there's a logical fallacy called hasty generalization and the genetic fallacy. And it's when we act like one person or one individual speaks for, acts for, represents the totality of a group. And that's where stereotypes come from, right? So in this case, it could just be two assholes. One of them happens to be white, one happens to be black. But there's a whole bunch of people with an agenda who want to push you to hate and join one tribe or the other in order to essentially take this tragedy and milk it for points for whichever tribe you subscribe to. And so when I see the father saying you're part of the problem, I think he's talking about anyone who's subscribing to the tribalism and trying to use this tragedy, his son's death, to score points for their team. It's kind of disgusting because it's dehumanizing, and it's like turns his death into like a cheap political like piece of theater instead of the actual lived tragedy that the guy's experiencing.
Like, if I said, when he referenced part of the problem, I thought he was promoting the Dave Smith podcast, just like that.
The paid ad. It was a paid little native ad there. There you go.
I was just doing an example of what Paul was talking about so that you can understand. It's called teaching. All right. So that tragic situation aside, I hope it doesn't spark off a larger set of George Floyd type of events over the summer, as we've had in the past. Because what is the key to getting millions of people to be like reacting simultaneously in one of two ways? Like, that's a function of indoctrination from schooling. That's the whole point, is that when you are presented with a stimulus, that you react in a predictable way such that it suits the plantation masters. That's what it's all about. So I would also agree with Metcalf's dad in that case. Like, don't be part of the problem. Be part of like the fire crew that's putting out the fire, not the people bringing gasoline and saying, hey, can I contribute? Twice a year, I teach a course called Autonomy. It's a 12-week course. It teaches leadership, entrepreneur skills, executive skills, all these types of things that I saw were taken out of our education system in order to make the schooling or indoctrination system that we've all probably went through. And it has served us well enough to be interchangeable cogs in the machine of the globalists. But if we want a homestead, if we want write our own ticket, work from home job, work from anywhere type of situation, they're not exactly handing those out at the end of college. They give you a piece of paper and they're like, good luck. So reality is dropping us off here, but the demands of reality are up here. So I created Autonomy to help people close that gap for themselves so they can level up their skills to the demands of the situations that life is putting in front of us presently. Life's demands of intellect and understanding precision and complexity are ever increasing. The schooling didn't prepare us for it. The media is not going to do anything but reinforce what schooling prepared us for. And so we're going to have to take a leadership position and take steps off the beaten path to kind of blaze our own trail in life. What makes the Grand Theft World podcast unique, invigorating, exciting, and informative? Most other podcasts out there are either doing straight up interviews or they're just covering the daily news. They're covering current events from the day they happened. And that is effective. It's useful. It's a great starting point. And then sometimes these current events change during the week past the first story. So we like to give it a little time. You have to wait till some of the dust settles on these stories in order to give them accurate coverage. And the other thing that's really missing in the media landscape is covering the articles that are coming out every day. That's great. That's necessary. But who's bringing in contextual history so that you can understand what has been going on for decades and decades to lead up to the machinations and actions that we see unfolding today? So what we do here on the podcast is we cover current events. Many of these things are censored, but we wait about a week. As a forensic historian, I focused mainly through my career on the history of globalism and collectivism and things that they call maybe the New World Order. There's a lot of facts to these sort of circumstances, groups, events, activities, working groups that they've had over time. So for Grand Theft World listeners, we not only break down the current events, most of which that are censored during the week, we provide you with contextual history, we give you the source notes, the references, we do deep dives, and this really empowers you with an understanding of context and history so that you can make more informed decisions in your life. There's also a community, a membership where you guys can actually ask questions and we can get into the show and we can share evidence. And there's a town hall weekly for Grand Theft World for those who listen to it and are interested in covering the stories that we don't get to during a 6-hour show. Listening to it an hour a day, you could easily consume the week's news, but you're going to have substance and meaning and context and understanding. And with that, you can make higher quality decisions in your life. So if you're interested in more quality in your life, go to grandtheftworld.com, click podcast at the top, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
These allegations are false.
This isn't Grand Theft Auto, folks. This isn't a video game.
What are the most surprising things that you discovered once you started pulling on that thread? Who he was connected to, what institutions he was influential over, what events he participated in?
Come on, man. What are we talking about? Come on, man. No.
You don't have to think about it, dude.
I got this quote because you said you didn't know much about Klaus Schwab. I made it my job to, as soon as this happened, I'm like, okay, this guy's their front man. Let me learn about the official history of the World Economic Forum. I got their 40-year history. I got every book that Klaus Schwab has written or ghostwritten. I went through those books. This is one of the most interesting passages.
Come on, man. Come on.